am just so excited to be back in this seat and being able to talk about this, to continue the story that started with Follow That Star. I had the privilege of sharing my rawness in this safe place when I did deliver that sermon called Follow That Star. And this speakeasy just continues to be a safe haven to grow and shine. And I received so much love from all of you. I was literally just floating for weeks. And I even received this beautiful crystal star from one of our wonderful members, encouraging me to keep following that star. It was so awesome. It was so awesome. And I've been riding that wave. And it really hasn't settled. Love does not ever stop moving. And I feel that here. So I had to ask more about the conversation that we had a few weeks ago. I had to ask myself about the divine wisdom I received while walking through that beautiful labyrinth in LA with Maureen and Jeannie and Mia Sarah and all the names that are not popping into my head right now, but it was a mystical moment because I received a wisdom here. And if you don't know what that was, or you weren't here for the talk, the message that I got when I took a pause in the labyrinth, where I was feeling very stoic and just not very much in love, but I was letting that judgment go. And so when I paused, I heard this whisper. Actually, it wasn't a whisper. It was pretty loud and clear. You can forgive your dad and still hold him accountable. And I heard that, I accepted it, but I really didn't know what it meant. And so I knew that there was more to know, and the process unfolds. I had a little bit of work to do. I called it the work of the soul. I needed to talk to Holy Spirit. And I also know that when we inquire, we will get answers, either from our friends, all of our brothers and sisters who speak the word of God through them, or I should say, and from getting still and really listening into what was present for me. And the answers started to roll in. Since then, we've had amazing conversations here at Speakeasy about accountability and forgiveness. Especially our recent speaker, Kathy Buckley, who just knocked it out of the ballpark. Through her story, she reminded me that we can continue to have a relationship with those who have harmed us, hold them accountable, and lovingly forgive. She forgave her father who sexually abused her, and she still had a healthy, loving relationship with him until the day he passed away. She was even able to lay in bed with him and love him. And to me, she is an absolute master, and I want to emulate what she has offered us in accountability and forgiveness. But there's still this question, what if the person to whom you're forgiving is not knowingly or physically in your life? How do you hold them accountable still? And I learned a few things that didn't work. It does not work to try and get revenge, attack with words, manipulation, and beg anyone to take accountability. Since my dad wasn't around, I used every relationship with a partner to live this out. My former husband was an alcoholic. I spent so much time taking his personal inventory and begging him to go to AA. His name was Tom. Tom, please take accountability. I'm fine. You're not. You need to take care of this for me so I feel comfortable. Funny thing is, he did go to AA after I left the marriage. I could write my own version of Isn't It Ironic by Alanis Morissette for myself. It also does not work to try and shut down all your emotions. It doesn't work to try and shut down all your emotions and just become complacent. I also tried this. I nearly died trying to do so, experiencing suicidal thoughts for years. And I actually had a plan. It wasn't so much that I wanted to die. I wanted the pain to stop. And when I thought of suicide, The very thought of it gave me the relief in my mind that told me, you have power to end this. It was just enough relief that I could keep on going day to day. And also, it doesn't work to put on a happy face to try to fit in and pretend everything is just fine. Again, I put my game face on and I would go to parties and places that felt uncomfortable to try to feel normal and to fit in. And this just resulted in resentments towards myself and making up stories about others that were just filled with a tale of blame and shame. And to add to my song, isn't it ironic? I would attend parties where there was a lot of underage drinking and drugs. I did not have a desire to partake in those activities. I just liked being around people who were numbing themselves because it felt normal. And they also looked like they were having fun. And when those parties got busted, it never failed. The police would shine that flashlight in my face and sternly say, "You look familiar." It would baffle me, but perhaps they were seeing the familiarity of guilt written all over, because I felt guilty. I rejected myself because I had little self-worth. And while no one knew I was rejecting myself on a daily basis, I knew, and it really hurt. So at last we arrived back to, you can still forgive and hold your dad accountable. And today I'll add this to it, even though he is not present in my life. Thanks to my survival skills I developed as a kid, I learned to protect my dad and his behaviors, justify his departure, and tell myself that he really deserved to have a good life. It's okay that he left a message on the answering machine without an explanation, just disinviting me into his home. It must have been really hard for him to have to face me and tell me that to me. I thought he must have been so unhappy being a dad, and I really didn't want him to be unhappy. So whatever he had to do to be happy and be in his life, it was okay by me. I just wanted him to be happy. I fed myself these lies to cope and give myself some understanding as to why he could leave so easily. And I did it by minimizing my needs and making his a priority. I have rarely been able to muster up anger at my dad. I don't know why, it just is. But if you recall from Kathy Buckley, she stated that she got angry and then she decided she would not only forgive her dad, but she could have a relationship with him on her terms. Anger is a beautiful emotion because it is a call to action to make a change. I instead took my anger and directed it at myself and others. When it was too much to direct at myself anymore, I would display it at my family, towards my partners, towards friends, or towards the work I was doing by continuously looping through thoughts of hatred at myself. Hence my marriage, directing the brunt of the anger at Tom. And then even I would go out and I would speed and I would get these speeding tickets and it was all the cops' fault. But I was just so mad. I was just so mad. From the period of 25 to 28, I graduated college. I had been married and divorced. I joined Al-Anon and I dropped out of Al-Anon. And that was a 3-year round trip. I really hated Al-Anon. I wasn't the one with the problem. Everyone else was. Plus, I found it to be really depressing. The timing of everything felt hopeless. I left my marriage abruptly and I moved in with my grandma and grandpa, called my grandma Ma. And this gave me some peace and solace. I was underweight. I ate McDonald's sausage egg breakfast sandwiches to nourish myself. And when I did have an appetite. And on some days, I was just too depressed to get out of bed. I was really living a shitstorm. It helped, though, that Ma and Grandpa's home had always been a place of safety for me growing up. And I was lucky to have such a great relationship with my namesake, Regina Verdico, my spitfire, redheaded grandma, I so endearingly called Ma. We actually printed a book called The World According to Regina because she had so many things that she just, so many beliefs. And one of the doozies in there was Empire Carpet. I don't know if you know the song 588-2300 Empire. She resented that ad so much that she absolutely thought that you were insane to purchase carpet from them. And it was written about in her book. Once that safe haven was established, my search for something better started to bubble up in me. Partying with my friends was not inspiring, and I had just landed my first best ever job. As a kid, I always said I wanted to live in a mall. I thought sleepovers in malls would be the bomb diggity. What I didn't know is I would literally live out this dream. I landed a job at a mall as a marketing director of the entire property. Within 3 years, I was an award winner. I received the highest honor. It was a gold maxi, think Oscars, for hosting a mall lock-in with the local teen center that set up shop in our community shopping center. I received that award in the same theater that Brad Pitt and all of our favorite movie stars received their Oscars. Talk about rolling out the red carpet for me. At age 33, right around that time, I started being recognized for my service in the shopping center industry. I also started studying A Course in Miracles and found Unity Church. My intent was to have a more loving relationship with God, since my Catholic version was hard to live up to. I had given him the character traits of being resentful, punishing, and judging. Plus, I had watched this movie, The Secret, and it gave me hope that there was another way. And that was just enough to move me. I started to fill myself up spiritually. I attended services at Unity every Sunday. I participated in life-giving programs, and I joined the youth program to be of service and teach the preschoolers about affirmations, energy, love, and God. It turns out I was the one who really needed that curriculum. While it was scratching the surface, I still felt lousy. And these were the years when suicidal thoughts were reeling through my mind. It's like that song says, I was looking for love in all the wrong places. Through my half-assed relationships and by depriving myself of love, I was a master at it. So I signed up to be a student at the School of Metaphysics. Oh yeah, I thought, this is going to do the trick. I'm going to feel better. It's going to save me. Well, it didn't. It was super restrictive and controlling, which was a perfect reflection for who I was at the time. I was in a box, couldn't move. And part of the curriculum was to read Work of the Soul. I didn't want to. I was not interested in being told what to do. The book didn't interest me, and I was told if I didn't do it, I'd be kicked out. It was perfect because it was just helping me to relive the fact that my dad had kicked me out of his life for not being good enough or not following the rules. But it made me mad, and that was a sign of change coming. So I had enough sense to question my resistance to that simple task of reading a book called Work of the Soul. And my Google search turned up workofthesoul.com. Logical. But it belonged to a woman named Mary Hoffman, a guide who facilitates inner healing. And my life really started to turn around when I stepped into that. And I really stepped into it. The Work of the Soul started with the work of inner child healing. Mary and I would connect on the phone, and she would guide me to the dark places inside of my mind. And together we would shed light on the confusion from the mixed messages of childhood. I was doing the work of the soul, and my life was improving on a daily basis. It was with these sessions that amends started to take place. When we amend something, we alter our mindset. A living amends is a promise to keep working to heal a relationship. It's a lifelong commitment. In the 12 steps, we are offered an opportunity to make amends for our wrongdoings. I think of amends as actions being taken that demonstrate your new way of life. It's different than an apology, because an apology is words. An amends is an action. When you make amends, you acknowledge and you align your values to your actions. Sometimes it's by having to admit a wrongdoing, and then we live by those principles. As these amends occurred, my inner power and authority started to get lit. The power was always there. It had just been mistrusted. Think Dorothy and Glenda the Good Witch and the Wizard of Oz. You had the power all along, my dear. Thankfully, this fire of trust was being lit, but not by pouring lighter fluid on it. It was through nurture, gentleness, patience, and respect. And I actually witnessed this fire being built when I was in Mexico recently. I met a man. He was designated a guardian of the fire. And I watched him light this fire with so much patience. He didn't force the fire to start. He placed wood in a safe area designated for the fire. He fed it paper and leaves that were nearby, and then he lit it. And the small orange flame started to burn. And he knew enough to just fan the fire. He fanned it with his drum. The hot embers started to light up effortlessly and without force. And it danced. And it felt sacred and happy. And this was the same love that was used to awaken my inner fire of trust. And I too was starting to feel sacred and happy. There are 1,000 ways back into ourselves and our return to God. Here's a few steps that I have taken. Perhaps it will resonate with you. Step 1, acknowledging that what is happening in your life is not working. Your emotional compass will give you that guidance. Just like the addict, we have to admit we are powerless over and go ahead and fill in whatever your fear is. For me, it was abandonment, and that life was becoming unmanageable. Not just becoming, that it was unmanageable. Step 2 is to become present. Take an action that brings you back to your connection with yourself, your divine, or whoever you associate with as a higher power. This action may be a moment that you take a breath, just to pause and return to presence. Sometimes it's through deeper work like inner healing, AA, and ACIM. But the second step is to become present. As I began to do this work of the soul and become present to my thoughts, feelings, and emotions, life became less effortful and more effortless. I would have a thought about a cup of tea and how it would taste, and suddenly somebody from my work would be delivering it and just showing up and saying, "Hey, Regina, I was thought to bring you this cup of tea." My mind started to see the world differently. A thought that I used to have about making ends meet used to hold an idea of scarcity and survival. But someone showed me how it represented wholeness and abundance, that when ends are meeting, there's a circle. I also was able to hear the soft, loving voice of Holy Spirit in that presence. That place where we get a whisper or a nudge to do something that feels loving and kind. And I also, in that space, began to stop separating from my brothers and my sisters and my mom and even my dad. And I became willing to forgive and see that my needs were not separate from anybody else's. And then there was step 3. Make choices and decisions with the God of your being. Don't do this alone. We're not alone. When we return to the divine connection through our pause, we now invite in decisions and choices that are grounded in love and our connection to a higher power. This is what letting love lead is. It took a few years of doing this soul work, this work of the soul, but I reached this radical moment right before my 40th birthday. I got on Match. That was one of my things. But I was also ready to hold my dad accountable for his actions. I wrote this letter to him, and the letter said to him that I was present in this world, even if he wanted to deny my existence. And I let him know I needed a dad and that I was really disappointed that he wasn't in my life. And I also let him know that I was still okay and that my life had turned out pretty great despite his absence. But it was hard and I needed him. I didn't hear from him, but I was very, very glad that I sent that letter. Playing small was not helping my dad, and it was diminishing me, and I was done with that. The story with my dad is complete. I cleaned up my side of the street. I have held my dad accountable, and I have even forgiven him because I can see that his needs are not outside of my own. and nothing in my life requires his presence. Thank God. And until I did this talk, I did not even realize that it was done. A living amends does not mean we've arrived. It's a moment-to-moment presence. It's a moment-to-moment presence to be accountable for our thoughts and actions. As we amend, we make whole with what's once seemed broken. Thank you for listening and going around the sun with me one more time on this journey with my dad. I commit to living large in my holy light, and I have broken up with playing small to accommodate another person's insecurities. And so it is.
And so it is. Gorgeous. Thank you so much, Regina. I feel so inspired.
This one is a very simple little song we sang back in the days when I was part of a church folk group. I grew up Catholic in Dublin. I suppose that was probably the only option in Dublin back in the 60s when I was born. But anyway, I was very happy in my days in the church folk group, and I came across this little small song which I've remained playing ever since. So nice to be back here today and playing it for you guys. So hope you enjoy. It's very simple. His name is wonderful. His name is wonderful. His name is wonderful. Jesus, my Lord. He is the mighty King, Master of everything. His name is wonderful. Jesus, my Lord. Master of everything, his name is wonderful. Jesus, my Lord. His name is wonderful. His name is wonderful. His name is wonderful. Jesus, my Lord. He is the mighty King, Master of everything. His name is wonderful. Jesus, my Lord. Jesus, my Lord. Jesus, my Lord. If life is a river, your heart is a boat, just like a water baby, baby born to float. If life is a wild wind that blows way on high, and your heart is Amelia, dying to fly, heaven knows no frontiers. I've seen heaven in your eyes. If life is a bar room in which we must wait round the man with his fingers on the ivory gates, where we sing until dawn of our fears and our fates, and we stack all the dead men in self-addressed crates. In your eyes, faint as the singing of a lark, but somehow this black night feels warmer for the spark, warmer for the spark, to hold us till the day when fear will lose its grip and heaven has its way. Heaven no frontiers, and I've seen heaven in your eyes. If your life is a rough bed of brambles and nails, and your spirit's a slave to man's whips and man's jails, where you thirst and you hunger for justice and right, and your heart is a pure flame in man's constant night, in your eyes, faint as the singing of a lark, that somehow this black night feels warmer for the spark, warmer for the spark, to hold us till the day when fear will lose its grip and heaven has its way, and heaven has its way, when all will harmonize and know it's in your heart, the dream will realize. Heaven knows no frontiers, and I've seen heaven in your eyes. Heaven knows no frontiers, and I've seen heaven in your eyes.